Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Members of the New York delegation to Congress say that it's sad, upsetting, and awful as they watch from the sidelines while two of their longtime colleagues in Congress, Democrats Jerry Nadler and Maloney, are locked in a political death match against each other following the redrawing of the state's congressional district lines. Kevin Frey in our Washington, D.C. bureau joins me now with a full report. Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Earl. As you're talking to lawmakers, and as I have over the past couple of days, it is kind of this general sense of, oh gosh, look at these two real titans of New York politics, of New York City politics in particular. They're now facing off in this really critical race that's coming just now months away. Ask members of New York's congressional delegation about it, and you'll hear similar answers.
It's difficult to watch.
It's heartbreaking.
After New York's redistricting debacle, veteran Manhattan Democrats Jerry Nadler and Maloney, one from the west side, the other from the east side, are in a primary against each other in the newly redrawn 12th congressional district. At least one of them will not be returning to Washington come next year. So far, their New York colleagues in Congress are not picking sides.
My rule is when you have multiple friends in a race, it's best to remain on the sidelines.
Ultimately, it will be up to the voters of the 12th congressional district to make that decision as to who continues to serve.
Nadler and Maloney arrived on Capitol Hill around the same time and have a combined 60 years of congressional experience between them. They both ascended through the ranks and now chair powerful committees. Maloney atop the Oversight Committee, Nadler in charge of House Judiciary. In recent weeks, they both led high-profile hearings on combating gun violence. What does losing a chairperson from the delegation mean?
It means losing power.
Queens Representative Gregory Meeks was first elected a few years after Maloney and Nadler, and now chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He calls it an awful situation.
And here you have, two great chair people, for New York. So by taking one away, it hurts New York. So it's bad for New York all the way around.
Now, there is one other Democrat in this race, Suraj Patel, an attorney who nearly bested Maloney during the 2020 primaries. He is now running again and is framing himself as essentially a new, fresh voice that after all of these years that Nadler and Maloney have been representing this area here in Washington, it's time for a change candidate.
So, Kevin, that's really the answer in a lot of ways, isn't it? That, 30 years each, it's respectable. It's brought a lot of power and prestige to the delegation and to New York. On the other hand, at some point, you want other leadership to at least have a shot at serving the public as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of Patel's argument. If you watch even just his first kind of campaign ads of this session, this year, I should say, is he's basically pitching himself as saying, look, the politics of the 90s no longer work. But at the same time, here in Washington, seniority is very much key. So if you're going to get into Washington as a freshman, fresh new voice, you're also going to be back to the bottom of the line when it comes to positions like being a chair, being in charge of getting legislation through.
Yeah, and it really does seem pretty evenly matched, meaning I believe most of the district, if you go voter by voter, are former Maloney constituents. On the other hand, she's got Suraj Patel in the race, and he's run against her a couple of times now.
Right, and then I believe Nadler's portion is a slightly smaller than Maloney's old portion. And so the question is really, with two very well-known entities in this race and a kind of an outsider third entity, how will they split up these votes? Could you see a third, a third, a third? It could be just a margin of error.
Okay, we shall see. Thanks very much, Kevin. We're going to take a break.